Hi there everybody, Paul Newsome here from Swim Smooth. I'm super excited today to be spending a bit of time on pool deck with Bud McAllister down here at the Craigie Leisure Centre. We've had a bit of a showery morning and I've been chewing the fat with Bud down here for about the last hour and a half, so I've been picking up some absolute pearls of wisdom with respect to swimming efficiency, stroke technique, training sets, etc. Now, as a quick intro to Bud is probably most known for the fact that he coached Janet Evans to the 1988 Seoul Olympic Games, 3 Olympic gold medals. She went on to win a fourth one in Barcelona in 1992. Janet Evans went on to be undefeated for 5 years, I believe, over the something like that. Some crazy facts and figures there. Freestyle was unbroken for 19 years, and we're just going to have a little look at, in a moment's time, at the difference between Janet's stroke and one of our favourite swimmers as well, Rebecca Adlington. And Rebecca Adlington actually broke Janet Evans' record eventually 19 years later. So, Bud, thanks very much for joining us here.
My pleasure.
Great. And do you want to tell us a little bit about your background in coaching? Because one of the facts which I've been able to sort of glean from the interweb sort of thing is the fact that you started in 1980, is that correct? And as an assistant coach?
Real coach in 1980. I was coaching summer country clubs in 1976, just in the summer, YMCA's. So 1980 I started with Mission Viejo, real swim club, yeah.
Real swim club, yeah. So it's quite a big jump then for, within 8 years' time to then be coaching at the Olympic Games, and not just at the Olympic Games, but to have 3 Olympic gold medals through Janet Evans, at that particular event. And if I'm correct now, you have 5 medals, 5 Olympic medals to your credit.
I don't know. I don't keep track.
Don't keep track, really.
I just try and make sure I get a swimmer on every Olympic team that comes up. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh,
so I think I've got 6 Olympics now, and I just missed a couple other ones. So,
okay,
but I'm not done.
Yeah, sure. No, absolutely. So you're coaching here at Craigie, or the Craigie Leisure Centre, and also Arena Joondalup, as well as the head coach of WACE, the West Australian Institute of Sport. Tell us a little bit about some of the other coaching roles that you've had over the years.
Well, basically I coached in the U.S. for about 20 years with parent-run clubs, and there's just so many different problems that after that 20-year period I decided I'm either going to coach at a U.S. university or I'm going to go to a training center, and there was a training center position open in Canada. So I did that, and I stayed up there for 7 years. Really liked the concept of a training center, not having a big group of 30-35 swimmers, not having to answer to parents. So I've stayed in training centers, but the problem with that, of course, is that the funding gets cut. They close your training center, so they closed the training center in Canada. I went to Britain for 7 years. They cut the funding. They closed the training center there. So then I'm down here now at another training center, but I don't think they're going to cut my funding.
Right.
So
okay.
That's good.
Okay. No, absolutely. Now, when Janet Evans first walked onto the pool deck, and you first met her on the pool deck there, one of the systems which some of our viewers will be familiar with that we utilise is what we call our swim type system, and basically an individual person is Janet Evans. I knew how she swam. Even on her own website, she talks about the fact that she was regarded as having a very unorthodox freestyle swim stroke, and describing it as a windmill style. And some would even say, it appeared to be fairly inefficient. But when you first saw that, can you tell us a little bit about what you saw and what you tried to do, and things that worked and things that didn't?
Yeah. Well, actually, I first saw her when I was coaching at Mission Viejo. She was at the club she was at, Fullerton. She was 10 years old, and it was a short course yards meet, and she, from an early age, was an absolutely ferocious swimmer. She attacked the race, went out as fast as she could because she was so small, trying to keep up with the other swimmers. And in this race, it was 200 free. She took 36 strokes in a 25-yard pool.
Wow.
So, I mean, it was, people were laughing at her.
Yeah.
But she was one of the best 10 and unders in Southern California, which is and was one of the most competitive age group programs in the world.
Wow.
So she was racing top level people that went on, were excellent world class swimmers at age 10. And we laughed at her, but Mark Schubert was there, and she got out of the pool and he said, she reminds me of Sippy Woodhead, who was one of the greatest American female swimmers of all time. And I didn't start coaching Janet until she was 14 or 15 when I took the job at Fullerton at her club. So I knew what her strokes were like, and I never gave a whole lot of thought to changing her freestyle because she'd swam that way for as long as I'd known her, and she was having success. To me, the only question was, what about her IM? Because she was swimming IM. The year before I took the job, I had a good IM swimmer at Mission Viejo that I thought could win junior nationals. Not only did she not win it, I think she got third or fourth. Janet beat her, and I knew her coach, and I knew she wasn't training IM. And I went up and asked him, how much IM training are you giving Janet? He goes, none.
Wow.
And she beat this girl that I had that I thought was pretty good. So when I first got her, I looked at all of her strokes and went, she has no really weak stroke. She needs to improve her butterfly endurance. And that's what we worked on, because at that time I looked at the world rankings and the 400 IM, in my opinion, was very weak, and it was. She won with a 437, which is nothing phenomenal.
Sure.
But it was another opportunity to win.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
she had really good strokes. Butterfly had to improve. She first started out going out in a 111, which put her out of the race. By Seoul, she went out in a 104. So we just worked on improving, holding her technique longer and doing more butterfly.
Wow.
I even had her do swimathon, which was 5,000 yards, all butterfly.
Yes, yeah.
She had no shoulder problems, obviously.
No, yeah. Wow. Now, one of the things that you picked up there was obviously the length of her stroke over the short course, and effectively having a fairly short stroke. But you were just telling me on the pool deck there, she only weighed 45 kilos. She's 5'4", I believe that's correct, and
at the tallest.
At the tallest.
When I first got her, she was less than 45 kilos. She was probably 40 kilos, and tiny. Yeah, absolutely tiny.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I never even counted her strokes really after that, because I remember someone came up to me after one of her long course races, and of course she was doing best times every time she dove in. And this guy had been watching her. He said, "Oh, she took her stroke count down from 62 to 52." And I go, "I don't even count them. I get her stroke rate, how fast she's going, and then I get her times."
Absolutely, yeah.
I wasn't even focused on how many strokes she was taking. It was working.
Yes.
She could keep up with most anyone.
Absolutely, no, definitely.
Yeah.
And a few weeks back on the blog, we ran a blog about swim golf, or SWOLF as it's commonly known, which many of the wearables use, the watches, etc., to measure swimmers' efficiency. And we did some data back to the Rio Olympics 2016 using a company's data front called Tritonware, who I know you're familiar with. Yeah. And the stats showed there that Katie Ledecky, Adam Peaty, even Gregor Palatrini actually had supposedly the least efficient freestyle swim strokes by counting strokes and relating to swim speed and stuff. And I think there was even a report at the World Championships that Palatrini had taken 390 strokes more than Romanchek, who finished in second place. And I think it's easy to appreciate swimmers like you have in the pool just a moment ago. Ben Roberts, a 15-12 short course 1500 freestyler, who is very much a classic, as we described it, smooth, looking fantastic, super versatile with his breathing patterns and stuff. It's very easy to recognise and appreciate that style of stroke. And maybe with people talking about Janet's stroke as being unorthodox or like a windmill style, etc., it's sometimes almost seems a little bit derogatory, but it obviously worked, and that's something that you promoted quite strongly, presumably.
Yeah, and then you talk about efficiency. Janet was tested at the Flume in Colorado Springs, probably right after the Olympics, and at that point she was the most efficient swimmer they had tested.
Wow.
But they're also looking at I'm sure cardiorespiratory,
yes,
right?
Yes,
because
absolutely.
she obviously had a very high anaerobic threshold. So it depends how you measure, how you define efficiency.
Absolutely,
right?
Whether
and
it's biomechanical,
that's
physiological.
Right. So those strokes for Ledecky and Palatrini, that they're taking more strokes than their competition, that's the most efficient stroke for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a big important point for many people. So what I'm going to do now is just bring up a couple of video clips. We'll actually just bring in both Rebecca Adlington and also Janet Evans just side by side here, and we'll just have a quick look at that. So we're very fortunate to be able to to film Rebecca Adlington back in 2012, just before the London Olympic Games, and obviously two great swimmers side by side here. Here's Janet. Now, the one of Janet here was actually a fairly recent one, going back to, I believe it was 2011 here, so it's the breaking the Masters world record for the 800 freestyle here, and when we've shown this video clip at various clinics that we've done over the years, and people have often said, oh, wouldn't she be so much better if she changed her stroke and what have you? And in comparison to somebody like Rebecca Adlington here, who looks super smooth and very efficient, I mean, it's a nice looking stroke, right?
Completely different strokes, though.
Completely different strokes, exactly right. And I think what we've been trying to do over the years is try to encourage people to look a little bit beyond the aesthetics, obviously to recognise how somebody like Janet is not just a world-class swimmer, but one of the best ever. And we've frequently shown this video clip to swimmers, and they say, oh, wouldn't she be so much better if she stopped bouncing up and down, if her stroke rate was a little bit lower and the length of the stroke a little bit longer there. But what was obviously impressed me about your own coaching there, Bud, is the fact that you chose specifically not to try and change that.
Yeah. Actually, one day we spent maybe 10 minutes experimenting with a 6-beat kick and a high elbow recovery, and it just wasn't natural for her. She couldn't swim anywhere near as fast, and we never tried it again.
No, absolutely.
I mean, it was just like, there's pointless. There's no way, and I know some coaches say, well, you got to give it a couple months. No, absolutely not.
No, absolutely not.
I could tell right away.
Totally. When we had that first conversation, I mentioned a swimmer who I started working with when he was 15. I was only 18, 19 as a brand new swimming coach. A guy called Harry Wiltshire here. Now, Harry, back at the Ironman World Championships last October, was the first professional athlete out of the water. And if I just show you his stroke here, this is a stroke which many coaches have said, wouldn't it be so much better if you didn't swing his arm like a windmill, if your stroke rate was a little bit slower and the length of the stroke a little bit longer. But
I like it.
You like it?
I like it.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's his best stroke. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he breathes to one side. He's a little bit lopsided. He should roll a little bit more to the right. You don't have to breathe to both sides,
sure,
but you need to roll evenly. But if he doesn't have shoulder problems, it's not bad.
Absolutely.
But it gets him into a rhythm.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the whole thing with the straight arm recovery is, with Janet, and he's probably the same way, there's so much acceleration and hip rotation, the hand comes out straight like it does on butterfly.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what's wrong with that? You've got more hand speed and more acceleration. That's what you want.
Totally.
So they don't have a front end of their stroke like a lot of the swimmers glide and wait and do almost a full catch-up stroke. Well, you have to have a kick to do that. He doesn't have a great kick. Janet did not have a great kick. So that's not going to work for you.
No, absolutely. Talking about the kick, have you done much work on changing kicking patterns, and how would you go about doing that? So,
no, I don't. I think you have a natural kick. There are a few swimmers that can switch and go from a 2-beat to a 6-beat, back and forth depending on what they're doing. And like, even for example, Ben, he'll go a very relaxed low kick, and then at the end of the race they'll go into a big 6-beat kick. But very few swimmers even will go from a 2-beat into a 6-beat. They're going to go an easy 6-beat into a hard 6-beat.
Yes.
Janet did just a straight basic 2-beat. She could kick a little bit, maybe for 2 to 3 seconds out of a turn, and that was it.
Yeah,
Other
sure.
than that, it would take up too much effort away from her swimming and her stroke rate, which was the key to her success, was maintaining that stroke rate.
Absolutely. We've got here 7-time world marathon swimming champion Shelley Taylor-Smith from here in Perth, and ironically enough, when we asked her to film her, she said, "Why do you want to film me? I've got a terrible stroke. I've got a terrible kick and what have you." And she pushes off the wall here with the classic 6-beat kick, but then all of a sudden breaks down into a beautiful 2-beat kick. Super rhythmical. Very nice.
Very good stroke.
Very good stroke indeed, yeah.
Well, that's what most distance swimmers will do. They'll 6-beat maybe to the flags, and then they go into their 6-beat kick to conserve energy, and they need to put the energy into the arms.
Absolutely.
You got a good front end, nice glide, high elbow, good hip rotation to both sides.
Absolutely.
Well, that's why she was so good.
Yeah, absolutely. There's another very good swimmer from here in Perth. I'm not sure if you ever got a chance to meet her, Mel Benson.
No.
So this was filmed up at Challenge Stadium, and funnily enough, when we were filming her, she had a couple of her college teammates in the background sort of laughing, why are you filming Mel? She's got a horrible stroke, etc. And she was known for, she was the Australian 5K open water swimming champion, very good at 800 and 1500 when she got a chance to do it in the pool. But to me, that just oozes rhythm. It's very
rhythmic stroke. You've got a relaxed 2-beat kick, not using a lot of energy, a fairly high stroke rate, but they can do that, right?
Absolutely.
She's rolling evenly to both sides, keeping a high elbow on the stroke.
Yes, yeah.
And then it's just training and conditioning.
Absolutely. Now, I think an important point just to sort of summarise with this then is that if we're saying that not every swimmer should swim with the classic smooth stroke, equally not every swimmer should try to copy what Janet's doing or what Mel's doing either. So again, another swimmer from here in Perth is a guy called Jono Van Hazel. Beautiful looking freestyle swim stroke, but he was a 50 metre freestyle specialist, went to Athens in 2004 and finished 9th in the 50 freestyle. And I think with Jono, this is filmed at Claremont swimming pool here, it's very easy to appreciate his stroke and what it looks like. We've got a little bit of data down in the bottom corner about stroke rate and stroke length just down here. And I guess this sort of style would be more similar to what we've just seen there with Ben in the pool there. And I think from a biomechanical perspective, Jono's obviously a lot taller than Janet Evans or than Shelley Taylor-Smith or Mel Benson. Got the classic sort of high elbow. What do you make of a stroke like that? Do you like
Yeah, it's definitely a 50, 100, 200 stroke. He's got a nice relaxed 6-speed kick, very high elbows. The thing I'd look for is how relaxed is the arm recovery. And even in Janet's stroke, if you look at her stroke, and I've spent 4 hours a day for 3 years watching it, she was completely relaxed. If you stopped her arm right there, even though it's straight, it's completely relaxed.
Sure.
Right? So she's being efficient while she swims.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's probably the most important thing, is don't waste energy, right? Save it for the end of the race or when you need to go fast.
Totally, yeah. Excellent. Now I'll just bring this to a little bit of a pause here then. So there's my little line. Okay, back to the full screen. So finally, Bud, thanks for giving us your insight into those swimmers there. Do you have any favourite middle distance or distance freestyle sets? Most of our listeners here are going to be swimming for triathlon, for open water swimming, interested more in the distance freestyle as opposed to sprinting. Do you have any of your favourite sets which we might be able to give you a try this week?
A good one that I like, I actually made it up myself a long time ago, go 4 400s. On the first 3 are easy, not even threshold, not super slow, but just make the interval, and it's not a fast interval. And then the 4th one is as fast as you can go. And I found my best swimmers can go, they're 1500 pace plus 1 second per 100. So Ben's average is 103, he should go 104s, that's 416, that's about exactly what he does. Then you go 3 300s, the first 2 easy, and then the 3rd one as fast as you can go, and that should be, if he's going 104s on the 400 for 416, then I want him to go 103s on the 300, so that would be 309, and that's exactly what he does. And then 2 200s, 1 easy, 1 fast, and then that should go down to 102s, right, from 103, 102, 104, 103, 102, so 204, 205, and then that last 100 as fast as you can go, try and break a minute. So you're hitting all the different energy systems. You're training for the 1500, 800 pace, 400 pace, and 200 pace, or very close to it.
Sure.
And I'll do that set every 3 to 6 weeks and see how they progress. And the only 2 females that I've coached that can break 420 and break 310 were Janet and Jazz Carlin. They're the only 2 females I've had that broke 16 minutes in the 1500 and 820 for the 800. So I just told that to a coach in Queensland who's got the next, in my opinion, great distance swimmer coming up, and gave him that information, and she's not there yet.
Right, okay.
She probably will be in the next year, I think.
Yeah, wow, that's exciting.
So those are like key points you have to do, and bring those average times down. It's a hard set, and if you go hard on the 400, a lot of people won't be able to go faster on the 3 or the 2. Well, you need to be able to gauge your speed and be in good enough shape you can back that up after a short recovery.
Do any of your swimmers ever sort of dread doing a test set, and do you have any advice for our listeners about doing test sets?
Yeah, they do. If they really don't put the effort in, then that's fine. I'll come up with a different set.
Okay,
But they have to do something like that. It just, if they don't do it. I had a Japanese swimmer that went to 2 Olympics, Suzu Chiba, and she hated to do challenge 50s, which is where the interval goes 50, 49, 48, 47. Drops 1 second, so you start out easy, and you go faster and faster until you miss the interval. She hated it. She didn't say she hated it. She just didn't try on it. She wouldn't go as fast as she should have. That should get you down to your 400 pace, the slowest 400, 450 of the 400. It's a very good predictor for 400 IM and somewhat for 400 free. So I never gave it to her. I would give her different sets, and she did quite well. She was ranked top 5 in the world in the 200 free and the 100 free.
Yeah, wow.
In 1999, 2000.
Yeah, wow.
She used to swim the 400, but she didn't like the 400. That's probably why she didn't like the set. But I felt with her 200 speed, this was back in the 90s, she went 158. and ranked 3rd and 4th in the world. I thought she could go a 4:05, but she didn't like swimming the 400, so we moved away from that, went into the shorter events.
Yeah, okay. And finally, many of our listeners, like I keep saying, were triathlon open water swimming orientated. We often talk about how a stroke like Janet Evans, and as we saw with Harry Wiltshire there, it seems to go really quite well in the open water because they have good rhythm, good momentum, etc. Did you ever sort of, obviously Janet was very much prior to the 10K being at the Olympic Games and stuff, but have you ever sort of looked back and thought, yeah, she would be a good open water swimmer, or did she ever express any interest in that at all? Or?
Open water wasn't nearly as popular back then. I don't think she ever tried it at all. It's funny now because Jazz Carlin, her plans are to swim in the pool through Commonwealth Games and then go to open water. And she didn't like it because I talk to her about it all the time. Her starts and turns are terrible. When we do a race analysis of any major meet, she's the slowest in the top 8 by far, starts and turns. We worked on them a lot. Janet's starts and turns were just as bad, but back then people weren't doing dolphin kick underwater.
No, okay,
so
yeah.
Jazz loses half a body length to a full body length to Ledecky and Allison Schmidt and the top swimmers in the 400 free.
Yes, yeah.
So
wow.
her swimming time is as fast as theirs. She gets speed on the starts and turns. So she'll do that. We'll see how she does. It depends if you like that. It's a lot of physical contact.
Yes,
going
yeah.
around the buoys. The last 500 meters when it's all elbows and fists.
Sure, yeah.
I don't think Janet would have liked it.
Do you ever fancy it yourself?
I did a couple triathlons. I did La Jolla Rough Water.
Right,
and the thing I remember about that was you go around a buoy, there's wall-to-wall people, and people I was passing, and I put my hand on their back and their shoulder. I didn't pull them backwards, but you got to swim over the top of people.
Yeah, sure.
And you're going to have people swimming over the top of you. You have to be prepared for that, right? And I know some swimmers, somebody else I think tried it in Britain, and they said, I didn't expect to get beat up like that.
Yeah.
The U.S. open water swimmers actually practice boxing so they know how to get hit.
Do they really? Yeah, wow.
Because they said, we're prepared for that. We know what to expect.
Sure.
And that's the thing. If you go into it and you're not prepared for something, you're going to go, wait a minute, you can't hit me.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, you can. And you can have your leg grabbed too, like Jack Brunel did.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
It's against the rules, but he got disqualified because he got mad and punched Malui for holding his leg. That's part of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then you better learn how to kick him with your other foot where no one can see it. Not hit him with your hand.
Yeah, totally.
So we'll see how Jazz does in that. I mean, if she can handle the physical part of it, she'll be great. But I don't think Janet would have liked it.
No, you reckon? No. Okay, right, great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thanks ever so much, Bud, for taking the time to speak with us today. I'm sure our listeners are going to be great to gain from your experience. Nearly 4 decades now.
It is.
Or 4 decades. 4 decades of coaching. So it's a huge amount of experience and stuff. And thanks very much for taking the time.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Yeah, excellent.
Yep.
Thanks, Bud. Thank
Great.
you very much.
Yeah.